Today's topic is item number 4, regulation of respiration. Okay. So by the end of this session, we will be able to learn about the respiratory centers. Respiratory centers with their names, location, and function. Okay. Secondly, we will learn about the nervous and chemical regulation of respiration. Then the lung function test we have already gone through the topic, but it was interested in this topic also. And regulation of respiration during exercise. So what are the respiratory centers? The respiratory centers are composed of several groups of neurons which are located bilaterally in the medulla oblongata of our brain and also in the pons area. You already know about the location of these two sites, right? What is medulla oblongata? Part of which brainstem, and it is the initial part of the spinal cord. And also you know about the pons of the brain. And this is divided into three major collections of neurons. So we call them together the respiratory centers, but individually we call them group of neurons. Okay, they are actually nothing but groups of neurons. So we classify them into three categories. Number one, dorsal respiratory group of neurons, known as DRG. Okay, then ventral respiratory group of neurons, VRG. Okay, and thirdly, pneumotaxic center. So these are the major three respiratory centers of our brain. Now, dorsal respiratory group of neurons, these are located in the dorsal portions of the medulla. Okay, this one. এটা হচ্ছে তোমার dorsal group of respiratory group of neurons. This one. And the ventral respiratory group of neuron হচ্ছে this one. This one is the ventral respiratory group of neuron. Now the dorsal respiratory group of neuron, dorsal respiratory group of neurons are located in the dorsal portions of the medulla, and the neurons are diffusely situated in this tract in the nucleus, which is known as nucleus tractus solitarius. And the main function key, what is the main function? Inspiration. It controls the inspiration. Second one, ventral respiratory group of neurons. It is located in the ventral portions of the medulla. So very easy to remember. Dorsal means located in the dorsal portion of the medulla, and ventral means located in the ventral portions of the medulla oblongata. Now what are the neurons called? Nucleus ambiguous and nucleus retroambiguous. Functions, they mainly cause expiration. Now third one, pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center located dorsally in the upper portion of the pons, and neurons are parabrachial and supraparabrachial nuclei. They control the rate and depth of breathing and control the medullary respiratory centers. Clear? It already বলে ফেলছি, we have discussed this. তাই নতুন করে বলার কিছু নাই। তাহলে ছবিটা দেখো। This one is এটা হচ্ছে medulla oblongata, and this one is the pons area. ঠিক আছে? Contact area. So dorsal respiratory group of neuron is this one, and ventral respiratory group of neuron is this one. আর এখানে একটা এই সেন্টারটার সাথে এটা কোয়ান্টাইল এরিয়াতে থাকে, this one is pneumotaxic center. Another center is said to be another respiratory center. এটার নাম হচ্ছে AWMC center, কিন্তু এটা আমরা এখনো it is not fully recognized. Okay, it is said to be hypothetically it is also act as a respiratory center, but it is not fully established till now. So the last, এখন next হচ্ছে কি আমাদের টপিক rhythmic breathing. Rhythmic breathing কি? ব্রিদিং কে আমরা যদি নেক্সট ইয়েতে যাই, দেখো ব্রিদিং কে আমরা দুই ভাগে ভাগ করতে পারি। একটা হচ্ছে কি কেমিক্যাল, আর একটা হচ্ছে কি নার্ভাস রেগুলেশন। কেমিক্যাল রেগুলেশন, নার্ভাস রেগুলেশন। But rhythmic breathing is nothing but the neural regulation or nervous regulation. ঠিক আছে? Rhythmic breathing ki the basic rhythm of respiration is generated but mainly by the dorsal group of neuron. and it limits the repetitive burst of inspiratory neuron. So this is a very, very important question for your written. Note it down. Note for written question for SAQ, log essay question. They write about the rhythmic breathing. Write in brief about the rhythmic breathing. Okay, rhythmic breathing. If you get this question, how to answer the question? কিভাবে লিখবা? দেখো, you can write it in a flow chart. The basic rhythm of breathing is generated in the dorsal respiratory group, DRG. What do you mean by this? Dorsal respiratory group. Then these neurons discharge some signals. ঠিক আছে? Discharge the signals. Signals are actually key. What are the signals? These are actually nothing but the action potential. So the neuron discharge some action potential. Okay? Discharge of inspiratory neuron action potential. Okay? Then what does they do? What do they do? The action potential travels via the phrenic and intercostal nerve. Phrenic and intercostal nerve. So the action potential travel a long way, starting from your medulla, and it goes to the phrenic nerve and intercostal nerve. Okay, where are they located? They supply the phrenic nerve supplies the diaphragm, and intercostal nerve intercostal muscles. So they go to the thoracic cavity, thoracic cage, right? And thereby they stimulate the muscles they supply. Okay, now what will happen? The action potential begins weakly and increase in a ramped manner for 2 seconds. Now what is this ramped manner? What is this inspiratory ramp signal? This is also a very important question for written as well as Viva. We'll discuss it in the later slides. Tahole, this action potential, how does it begin? Weakly. Okay, very weakly. Starts very weakly and increase in a ramped manner. Slowly it increases in a ramped manner. Then it goes to the pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center also gives another impulse. Gives inhibitory impulse. Okay, inhibitory impulse to the dorsal group of neurons. To what? For what? To limit the inspiration. Otherwise, the inspiration will continue and the lungs will burst. Out of heat, entry of lumps of air with exceeding the capacity. Exceeding the capacity of the lungs will fill out until it bursts. So it has to be limited. It has to be suppressed by some neuron. Which one is that? Pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center এটাকে inhibit করবে. Then what will happen? Then the inspiratory signal ceases abruptly. Ceases মানে কি? Suddenly it will stop. It will বন্ধ হয়ে যাবে. Why? Because the pneumotaxic center has sent the inhibitory or suppress the neurons of the dorsal respiratory group. So the inspiratory signal suddenly ceases for 3 seconds. So দেখো inspiration কত সেকেন্ড হলো? 2 সেকেন্ড. Expiration এখন 3 সেকেন্ড ধরে হবে. তাহলে when the inspiratory signal ceases abruptly, suddenly stop হয়ে যায়, then turns off the excitation of the diaphragm, allow the elastic recoil tendency of the lung to expel out the air, to exhale. That means your expiration has started. ঠিক আছে? তাহলে এভাবে আমার পুরো rhythmic breathing-টা হচ্ছে inspiration, expiration, inspiration, expiration. The inspiration is getting the signal from the dorsal respiratory group of neuron. It starts weakly, increases in a ramp manner for 2 seconds. Then another center, which is called pneumotaxic center, gives a suppressory inhibitory impulse to the DRG, and then it abruptly ceases for 3 seconds. Then it allows the elastic recoil tendency of the lungs to exhale the air. Now, what is inspiratory ramp signal? This is important question for written. Write it down. Important, very important question for written and Viva. In your Viva, you will find the box questions written inspiratory RAM signal. ঠিক আছে, box question or SOE, structured oral examination, যে question গুলো থাকবে, you find the questions in your viva. ঠিক আছে, those questions are also include inspiratory RAM signal. Now, what is inspiratory RAM signal? This is a nervous signal which is transmitted to the inspiratory muscles, mainly the diaphragm, and not in an instantaneous burst of action potential. Simply, it is an action potential. Okay? Then it is a nervous signal transmitted to the inspiratory muscle, mainly to the diaphragm. Now, how does it begin? It begins weakly, aste begin slowly, and increases steadily in a ramp manner for 2 seconds. In case of normal respiration. Then what happens? After 2 seconds, it must be stopped. ঠিক আছে, must be stopped. তাহলে কি হবে? Lungs ফুলে ফেটে burst out হয়ে যাবে. Lungs will burst out otherwise. So then it ceases abruptly for approximately 3 seconds. By which center? Pneumothoracic center, right? Which turns off the excitation of the diaphragm and allows the elastic recoil tendency of the lungs and the chest wall to cause expiration. Shabbai clear? Acha. Next, the inspiratory signals begins after another cycle. And this cycle repeats again and again. Okay? With expiration occurring in between. The signal, the chief signal, the main signal is coming from the which neuron? Inspiratory signal from dorsal respiratory group of neuron. Always say dorsal respiratory group of neuron. Okay? Thus, the inspiratory signal is a ramp signal. Ramp signal. Okay? Then, the obvious change or obvious advantage of the ramp, that is, it causes a steady increase. Steady, not abrupt increase. Okay? Steadily, because it starts weakly and increases steadily. And it increases the volumes of the lungs during inspiration. Rather than inspiratory gasp money, what is gasp? And whenever you climb the stairs, and then what do you do? After climbing 5 or 6 floors, you just try to eat air. ঠিক আছে, তাহলে এটাকে বলে গাছ। ঠিক আছে, গাছে হাউ মাউ করে বাতাস খাচ্ছে, তাহলে এটা হচ্ছে গাছ। ঠিক আছে, এটা হয় না। আমরা কি করি? নর্মাল ব্রিদিং এর সময় আমরা খুব স্টেডলি শুরু করি, শেষ করে 2 সেকেন্ড পরে আবার একটা ব্রেক, সেই সময় আমার ইলাস্টিক রিকল টেন্ডেন্সি কজেস এক্সপিরেশন। ঠিক আছে, এটাকে আমরা বলি র্যাম্প ম্যানার। 2 qualities of expiratory ramps are controlled. Number 1 control is to control the rate of increase of the ramp signal, and number 2 is to limit the point so that the ramp suddenly ceases. It must be ceased. So the earlier the ramp ceases, the shorter will be the duration of expiration. Okay, so ramp must be ceased. The earlier the ramp ceases, the shorter the inspiration. Whenever you climb the stairs, what happens? You do it very fast. Okay? Ramp earlier, it is stopped, ceased. Okay? That is why inspiration becomes shorter. এটাই বলা হচ্ছে, আর কিছু। তাহলে এই যে মেকানিজমটা, এইগুলো জিনিসটাকে বলতেছি আমরা inspiratory ramp signal. This comes as a short note, as এইভাবে লেখা আছে, what is inspiratory ramp signal, or briefly describe the inspiratory ramp signal, then you have to write it before. Okay? ঠিক আছে, আমি আবার বাংলা একটু এক্সপ্লেন করবো, আমি একবার ওদের ক্লাসটা শেষ করে দিই। তাহলে নার্ভাস রেগুলেশন কি হচ্ছে? What is nervous regulation? It can be controlled by voluntarily or involuntarily in 2 ways. Involuntary control is also known as autonomic control. Now, voluntary control, the area located in the cerebral cortex, and it sends impulses to the respiratory motor neuron via which tract? Corticospinal tract. It is of 2 types. Number 1 is breath holding, and number 2 is hyperventilation. So the voluntary control is located in the cortex. It is not in the medulla oblongata. Okay? Then it sends an inspiratory signal. It sends motor signals via which tract? Via the corticospinal tract. Now, involuntary control. It is controlled by the respiratory centers. So far, the centers we have discussed, it is under voluntary or involuntary? The respiratory centers we have discussed so far. It is under the involuntary control or autonomic control. So, afferent signals. Afferent signals comes from the vagus nerve. Therefore, it carries afferent signals from the mechanoreceptors of the lung and the peripheral chemoreceptor. Both the same. Mechanoreceptor, what do you mean? Do you remember from the nervous system? Mechanoreceptors are located in each and every part of our joints, muscles, tendons, etc. So whenever the lungs expand, lungs outer thoracic cavity, they have got muscles, and muscles got mechanoreceptor. Whenever the lungs expand, these receptors are stimulated and they send signal to the brain, okay, and also the peripheral chemoreceptors. Now, controls the rate and depth by Hering-Brewer reflex. Whenever not each and every breath, how much air do we take in and give out? Normal breathing. Tidal volume. The controls the rate and depth of respiration by Hering-Brewer reflex. Next, what happens? Overinflation of the lungs. Overinflation means whenever the lungs are expanded beyond the capacity, beyond its capacity, okay? Then what happens? Stretch receptors send signal through the vagus. Our limitation in each normal breathing is 500 ml tidal volume in each breath. We take in and give out 500 ml of air. So the maximum capacity of the lungs is 3 times the tidal volume. How much it is? Is it 1500 ml? Whenever this boundary, whenever this it is crossed or it is reached 1500, 1500 ml is reached, the stretch receptors are stimulated. Okay, so lungs expand, the stretch receptors are stimulated. They send signal through the vagus nerve, and the signals go to the dorsal respiratory tube. Then what happens? Then switching off of the inspiratory RAM signal. Okay, switching off the inspiratory RAM signal. Then what happens? If the RAM signals are switched off, what will happen? Expiration will occur. ঠিক আছে? তাহলে কি হবে? Then এটা ছিল হচ্ছে তোমার, this one was role of vagus nerve. There is another role of the sino-aortic nerve. Sino-aortic nerve. তাহলে sino-aortic nerves are stimulated whenever the oxygen, the hydrogen and the carbon dioxide ions, these are changed. Okay, যদি এই ions গুলো, এই gases গুলো বা এগুলো change যদি হয়, then these nerves are stimulated. So then impulse goes to the center, that means the respiratory center, via sino-aortic nerve. Okay, sino-aortic nerve. So far this was the nervous regulation. Now we will start the chemical regulation of respiration. The ultimate goal of respiration is to maintain the proper concentration of oxygen, carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration. এখন একটা কথা বলবো, সেটা হচ্ছে কি, there are 2 chemoreceptors in our brain. One is central chemoreceptor and another is peripheral chemoreceptor. What do you mean by chemoreceptors? Chemoreceptors are some receptors which are stimulated by chemical changes. What are the chemical changes? What are those chemicals? These 3. The hydrogen ion concentration, the carbon dioxide concentration and the oxygen concentration in blood. Okay, so if these 3 chemicals are changed beyond the normal limit, then the chemical regulation will start. Okay, ঠিক আছে? আচ্ছা, the chemoreceptors will be stimulated. এখন আমাকে বলো, from your previous knowledge of cardiovascular system, you remember what are the chemoreceptor feedback mechanism? মনে আছে? Blood pressure regulation control system. মনে নেই? তাহলে chemoreceptor যে মেকানিজম ছিল, শর্ট টার্ম মেকানিজমের মধ্যে you remember baroreceptor, chemoreceptor, মনে আছে? নামটা তো মনে থাকার কথা। তাহলে those chemoreceptors were located in the aortic arch, carotid body. Okay, the aortic arch and the carotid body, they contain the chemoreceptors which sense the changes in the chemicals. If there is changes in these chemicals, for example, if the carbon dioxide is increased in my blood, if the hydrogen ion concentration is increased in my blood, if the oxygen falls, these three are known as heat. Increased hydrogen ion concentration is called acidosis. Increased hydrogen ion concentration is called acidosis. Increased carbon dioxide concentration is called hypercapnia. And in decreased oxygen concentration is called hypoxia. So, in responses of acidosis, hypercapnia, and hypoxia, the peripheral chemoreceptors will be stimulated. What are the peripheral chemoreceptors? Aortic arch and carotid body. Okay, aortic arch is located in the arch of aorta, and carotid body is located in the carotid sinus. Carotid sinus কোথায় থাকে? At the bifurcation of the carotid artery. মনে আছে? লিখো, ধরে রাখো। আচ্ছা, তাহলে যখন ডিভিশন দিবা ফার্স্ট টাইম তখন আবার মনে পড়বে, ঠিক আছে? So these are stimulated. Whenever these are stimulated, they send signal to the central chemoreceptor. Central chemoreceptor মানে হচ্ছে the middle of the. Okay. Then the chemical regulation starts. তাহলে এই যে বললাম, কি বললাম, the ultimate goal of the respiration is to maintain the proper concentration of these ions in the tissues. Okay, so the respiratory activity is highly responsive to changes of this. What are the factors? Increased PCO2, increased hydrogen ion, and decreased partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, now এটা মনে রাখতে হবে, this is very 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 important. We ask this several times. সবসময় জিজ্ঞেস করবো যে which one is direct, which one is indirect. Okay, so the answer is here. আমি একবার आंसर দিয়ে দিছি যে তোমার increased hydrogen ion concentration is primary and direct stimulator of the chemoreceptor. Primary one and direct stimulator. By partial pressure of carbon dioxide, whenever it is increased and a hypercapnia, it is potent but it is indirect. Why? Why it is indirect? Write down the question. Why partial pressure of carbon dioxide is indirect? Potent but indirect. Why it is so? কেন? কে বলতে পারবে? Why the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is indirect but it is potent? More potent than hydrogen ion. Carbohydrate কার্বনিক অ্যাসিড তৈরি করে। কেন তৈরি করে? মানে রাস্তাটা অন্যদিকে হয়ে গেছে, ঠিক করে বলো। Because it cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. The carbon dioxide cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. That is why then it combines with water to form carbonic acid. Then it becomes hydrogen ion, and hydrogen ion can readily pass through the blood-brain barrier. ঠিক আছে? Very important question. Hydrogen ion can readily and instantly pass the blood-brain barrier, but carbon dioxide cannot. ঠিক আছে? That is why it is indirect. Now, যেটা আমরা অলরেডি ডিসকাস করে ফেলছি যে central chemoreceptor area or central chemosensitive area and what are the peripheral chemosensitive area. Central chemosensitive area is located bilaterally in the ventral surface of the medulla. And this area is very highly sensitive to changes either in the blood or partial pressure carbon dioxide or hydrogen ion concentration. And peripheral chemosensitive area are the carotid body and aortic arch. ঠিক আছে, আচ্ছা আজকে শুধু একটু বলে শেষ করে দিব। ইফেক্ট অফ পিসিওপি, ঠিক আছে, ইফেক্ট অফ পার্শিয়াল প্রেশার অফ কার্বন ডাইঅক্সাইড which has a direct effect। দেখো ডিরেক্টলি কাজ করে নাকি ইনডিরেক্টলি কাজ করে তোমরা বলবা। when blood partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases, it can cross the blood brain barrier। ঠিক আছে, it can cross the blood brain barrier। কিভাবে ক্রস করে এটা দেখো। more hydrogen ion is released in the chemosensitive area due to carbon dioxide combines with water, forms carbonic acid, and then it dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. Then the stimulation of the chemosensitive area occurs by hydrogen ion. Okay, and so this is how the chemosensitive areas are transmit the nerve signals to the respiratory neuron, from the dorsal respiratory group of nerve. And whenever this neuron is initiated or it is stimulated, then it sends signal to the other muscles, nerves, intercostal nerve, যেটা তোমরা রিদমিক ব্রিদিং এ করছো সেটা। ঠিক আছে, তাহলে আমরা আজকে এই পর্যন্ত রাখি। ঠিক আছে।